Hi, I'm Amy Lukes, and this week I am talking about Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Literature has always been a commentary on the society that it was created in, just as all art has always been a commentary on the society it was created in. Apolitical art does not exist, and literature is no exception. I could also spend an hour talking about how art can morph in interpretation and be commentary on the society it exists in rather than just the society it was created in, but that wouldn't be relevant because this book is very, very new. Now, I also like to say that art can be interpreted in ways that the creator didn't intend, but that doesn't mean that the interpretation is less valuable or less valid than the one that the author did intend, because an interpretation has to stand on the art itself, not on the author's intentions. That being said, let's get into it. Privilege is the idea that society and its systems, media, education, business, government, deny or grant certain things to people based on a particular trait. For example, if you're straight and cisgender, you have the right to marry. But if you are transgender, or if you're gay or bisexual or whatever, then you might not be able to marry the person you've fallen in love with based on what's on their birth certificate. Or white privilege means that nobody calls you an illegal. Race and sexuality politics have this idea of passing privilege. That is, if you appear to have a certain trait, if you appear to be straight, or if you appear to be white, then society will grant you those privileges based on your appearance. For example, a bisexual man and a bisexual woman can both marry each other as long as their birth certificates say they're different genders. Or a white passing Mexican woman like me doesn't get called an illegal. A lot of people take issue with the idea of passing privilege because there's a lot of privilege that has nothing to do with looks. And there's also a lot of psychological damage that you get from bigotry and being surrounded by bigotry, and people with passing privilege are not protected from that. On top of that, not everybody who is marginalized experiences the same lack of privileges. For example, I was never scared to come out to my parents as bisexual, and it's because my parents are bisexual. There are lots of stories like mine out there, and their experiences don't exist because of passing privilege. Their experiences exist because there's nuance in the idea of privilege when applied to a large group of people. Not everyone can experience every type of marginalization. Red Queen explores passing privilege with an invented social order. Reds, who bleed red and have no magical abilities, and silvers, who have silver blood and magical abilities. The silvers have created a monarchy and an oligarchy that they use to oppress the reds. Red Queen follows the story of Mare Barrow, a red who actually has a magical ability. And when it's discovered by the silvers, she is essentially kidnapped by the government and forced to live as a silver. Get further into the book, we start to see Mare get involved in red and silver politics, and we get to see how she's treated both by people who believe she's a silver and people who know that she's a red. This is extremely important to passing politics. If you are someone who can pass as straight or someone who can pass as white, then you get to choose to reveal that or to keep it hidden, essentially choosing whether or not to be marginalized. The question then becomes, is being granted those opportunities, straight opportunities, white opportunities, a privilege, or does it not negate the psychological damage you get from denial? Another great thing about this book is that the red-silver divide is intersectional, which is to say that other forms of oppression interact differently based on whether that person is red or silver. Now, there isn't much race politics in the book because nearly every character is mixed race, but the best example of this in the book is gender politics. While the silvers live in a very heavy patriarchy, there's a monarchy in place where only the sons inherit. Your last name is decided on by your father's last name, and even your magical ability tends to be decided on by your father's last name. The Reds don't seem to have any hint of a patriarchy at all. This happens in real life too. Society has different expectations for white women than it does for Latino women, just as it has different expectations for white women than it does for white men. What you should take away from this is how devastatingly complex real society is, and what you need to do to recreate that complexity when crafting your own fantasy world. What expectations of gender differ in that society? What about expectations of race and class? Do different classes of women have different expectations placed on them? Does passing privilege exist in that fake society? More importantly, does passing privilege exist in our very real society? Read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard to find